Well, hello, and welcome to Will Henry's Workshop. I am, of course, Will Henry. So now that I'm done fooling around with my own guns for a while, I've got to get back to doing some stuff that is sitting here in the shop. And one of the things I'll be, in fact, 3 jobs are recontouring barrels. The first one will be this Model 70 375 H&H stainless. And it's a heavy barrel. Measures about 720, I think, at the muzzle. We'll double check that. It is 721 at the muzzle, and we're going to take that down to about 650. Now, the one thing with this is it's fitted with iron sights, and as I alter the contour, of course, it alters where the sights sit and in relation to each other. The rear sight kind of has to stay the same. I'm going to have to wing it a little bit on this contour, but I think essentially what I'm going to do is turn it to about the front of the forearm at one taper. Then I'm going to taper it up so that I come out just in front of where the rear sight sits. And that way the rear sight will continue to sit at the same height. Now, for the front, I'm not real sure yet, but I think what I may do is just start turning behind the sight. Then I'll contour the barrel except where the sight sits on the milling machine. So, and then I can finish that off by hand so that ultimately the front sight will sit on a little pedestal that's about 50 or 60 thousandths tall. That way, the radius of the sight still matches the radius of the barrel. The height of the sight is the same as it was before, and everything should line up fine. And we'll have removed the weight, which is the primary reason for turning this down. So that's one. The second one is this 7mm barrel. And this barrel, it's a Williamson barrel. And as usual with Williamson stuff, it's a damn nice looking barrel. And but this one is going to be contoured to fit a Kimber. And it's not going to need an awful lot. I want to end up with this one. Let's see here. Let's get the calipers. I want to end up probably, just about where I'm at, around 600 at the muzzle, maybe a little more. And as usual on the Kimbers, I come back there again to the front of the forearm with very little taper, then follow the original Kimber taper from then on so that it matches the stock. And so this won't be too difficult once I establish where I'm going to be on the blank and cut off the excess. So that's number 2. And what the heck was number 3? Oh, number 3 is an Anschutz 22 silhouette rifle. And a lot of people shooting offhand, like to have a little more weight up front. But a lot of times after shooting that way, and especially as they get a little more mature, they find that the extra weight out front fatigues them over the course of the match. So they want to move the balance point back a little bit. So to that end, I'll take some weight off of the front of the barrel, and then if the rifle is underweight, you can add some weight at the back, with the pistol grip or even back near the butt to get the weight of the rifle back, but to change the balance point so that he's not having to hold up quite so much weight. When you do this, what I've found, and keep in mind this is coming from a guy that doesn't shoot all that great offhand, but as you lighten the front end, the actual amplitude of your wobbling doesn't change any. That is, you don't really hold into a smaller circle than you did before, but the frequency of your movement is greater. So that, in other words, you hold in the same circle, but you jitter around in that circle, whereas you might have been just kind of swinging around when it was heavier. But the thing was, as I said, as a person gets fatigued, then you start getting, muscle spasms and so on. So anyway, for that reason, we're going to be lightening that as well. So those are the three that I have to contour. And then I have a couple of rebarreling jobs and just a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, we're going to start with the contouring, and we're going to see, especially with that Winchester, we're going to see what I can do to make that work out. As usual, and as it happened, I had the centers set up in the lathe because I had to turn down again one of my own barrels. I'm doing a lot of experimenting prior to next year's tack driver, and so I turned down a barrel for that. And but anyway, so the centers are already set up, and I'll be offsetting the tailstock, of course, for the taper, as I've demonstrated before. Now, the one other thing that as we go into this one, that I'll mention, and as it turns out, it's not really going to rear its head if I do what I said I'm going to do. But if I should happen to have to turn through the screw holes, an issue I have, I try to use a brazed on carbide tip, which I cut to the correct profile, and I'll see if I've got that handy. There it is right there. And now, as you can probably see, the cutting edge of that has a kind of a U shape with quite a sharp knife edge. And this tool in use is set just a little above center, and it produces very little pressure to cut, so that there's not a lot of upward pressure on the barrel blank. So, and that kind of limits your chatter. And if everything's working perfectly, your chip will curl in that U. And ideally, I like the chips to come off about 4 or 5 inches long and then break off and fall. And it ends up, so you end up looking like you got a bunch of long coil springs. And, if they go longer than that, I don't really like that because it's kind of a hazard. And, and if they break off too quickly, like in say a 1/4 inch, that can set up a vibration which will turn to chatter, and we don't want that for sure. But anyway, so hopefully I can demonstrate a little of that. But for anyone that wants to contour barrels, this is pretty important. But anyway, back to the holes. With the brazed carbide tip, they work very well. You can sharpen them pretty sharp, and they cut smoothly because carbide's very hard and kind of slick. So it works well that way, but it doesn't really like the interrupted cut you get when you're going through a screw hole. So for that reason, I'll have some other cutters that are formed from, usually Atlas Spartan is a good one, or some cobalt steel that will stand up fairly well to the rigors of turning, and it's much more tolerant of an interrupted cut. Cutting stainless is much harder on the tool than is chrome moly, and I'm not sure what component. I suppose the chromium that's in the stainless steel has that effect, or maybe it's a nickel. Heck, I don't know. But all I do know is that it's a little harder on the tool. I can turn 2 or 3 chrome moly barrels with cobalt steel, quite often without having to touch the tool. With stainless, I'll be lucky to finish one barrel without having to touch up the tool. But anyway, so that's that. We'll get set up, and I'll pause you while I do that, because you've seen it all before. Okay, we're back again. So here's the barrel set up between centers. Now, right now, going from this point back to, this is about where the front of the forearm is. And if I run the carriage along there with the indicator, it shows me a difference of about 80 thousandths. So in theory, this is 160 thousandths larger. And let's see if that's the case. It's 25, 80, that's exactly what it is. So I'm going to cut that in half. That is, I'm going to reduce the amount of taper through this section, and to about, here we got 160. I'm going to try for about 80 thousandths of taper for that first portion of the barrel. And then, like I said, here where the front sight was, I'm going to cut in there and turn just this section, and I'll turn the tip too, just to establish my size. And then I'll turn that section, and like I say, this portion here, we'll figure that out later. And back here, from this point to the front of the rear sight, which is about there, I'll bring that taper up to where it's about the same as it is, and then just try to blend it in so that it doesn't look silly. And that should accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here. And then, like I said, I'll come up to the front here and finish off under the front sight. So anyway, here we go. That's so there we go. That's roughly the amount that I'm going to want to take off. So now I'll switch to another cutter and go from there. See if I can't start turning. And this is the thing, when you're doing this, like I say, the cutter shape is quite important. You need a good sharp cutter that minimizes the chip load when you're turning, or the amount of pressure that it requires for the cutter to turn or to cut. And so here is a cobalt bit that I'm going to have to just take a little off the back of it so I can get down into that cut. That should do. And yes, that will do. That's got, and it's got just a whisper. It's not chattering, but it's thinking about it. And here, all I'm doing is just turning a little section, because my carbide tool is just too fat to get in there. So rather than reshape that tool, because it works pretty good the way it is, I'm just making room for it with this one. So there we are. Got a good place to start. And that's the whole point of a tool ground like this, is you want it to cut almost entirely on that leading edge. You don't want it cutting on the tip at all. If it's rubbing on the tip, it'll chatter. And here, once again, we'll just check the height, roughly. That should be pretty darn close. Now here you can see the chip is tangling up around the barrel. It's not doing anything like what I want it to, so I'm going to increase the feed and see what that does for me. There, and that's breaking off just a little sooner than I would like, but all in all, it's not bad. It's smooth. Just a hint of incipient chatter there that hopefully we'll be able to live with. Now, because I'm reducing the taper, it's going to start cutting a lot heavier as I go, and I may have to back out a little bit. And in fact, I will for sure. And again, it's tangling up on me, so once more. And this is the thing, quite often, each barrel is an individual entity, and a lot of times they act different, even barrels that are ostensibly of the same material. There. Now, as you can see, it's coming out for about an inch and then breaking off. We'll see as it starts to cut deeper what it does. And to me, when you're turning, the right finish ends up looking just about like the grooves on a phonograph record, for those of you that remember what that is. Now, as you can see, this chip is coming off just a little longer than I like. You see when it starts cutting a little more. There we go. And that's about perfect. If they come off, get 2 to 4 inches long and then break off. Now it's breaking off before that, but nonetheless, again, it's cutting smooth. There's barely a hint of vibration. And so all in all, that's what you're looking for when you're turning on a long flexible shaft like this. I use the same tools or similar and the same methodology really when turning long long tubes for hydraulic cylinders, stage cylinders, and it worked the same way. It worked much better to try and get a tool that cut with minimal pressure than it did to try and steady the workpiece some other way, like with a following steady or something. Now it's starting to just want to chatter just a little bit. Just laying my hand on it is generally enough to stop that. Right now we're taking actually a pretty heavy cut, about 35 thousandths. And that, of course, adds to the chip pressure, and which adds to the tendency to want to chatter. Ouch. As I mentioned, those chips are hot. Okay, now we've got just a light cut now, and Bob's your uncle. Now I haven't looked real carefully at this barrel on the inside to tell. I don't know whether or not Winchester hammer forges their stainless barrels. All their chrome moly barrels were hammer forged, and they've always done an excellent job of it. Remington, of course, hammer forges their barrels for the 700s. And when they hammer forged stainless, they plainly had some problems, because you had those barrels that, for a period of time, that were rippled inside from one end to the other. And I think that was just reflective of the fact that that particular material didn't forge very well on their machinery, or they didn't have the machinery set up quite right. I don't know. Here again, that information is coming from somebody who's never forged a single barrel, so take it for what it's worth. Now this, with the lighter cut, is cutting quite well. The chip's coming off just a little bit long, to where I have to grab it and break it from time to time. But when it comes off like that, it does give you a nice, smooth, uniform finish with no chatter. So that's kind of an indicator of what you want in a lot of ways. And this section right here, this is the most difficult section of the barrel to turn, because it's right in the middle. It's in the most flexible part, really, of the barrel. And so if you're going to have a problem, this is where it's going to rear its ugly head. Now, mind you, this next section isn't going to be any walk in the park either. So we'll see what happens there. The thing is, that I've found, is that once you start contouring barrels and people hear about it, that gets to be almost too much a part of the work that you do, because a lot of people just won't contour barrels anymore. Now, of course, all the barrel makers do their own contouring, and so they're happy enough with it. But for some reason, in general gunsmithing shops nowadays, the contouring of barrels is regarded as being just about the same as open heart surgery, and as far as the level of difficulty is concerned. Now here, with my previous cut, you could see it was just starting to chatter here. You can see the reflection. And but this lighter cut coming afterwards, where it's cutting so nicely, has pretty well taken care of that. There we go. So now we've got the one little section of the barrel here, and the muzzle end turned to approximately the size we want. And double check that. Yeah, I wanted 680 there. That's what I've got. At 665 there, that's roughly what I wanted. So there we go. And as I said, this section here, we're going to take it over and set the barrel up in the rotary fixture in the mill. And then I'll just nibble around here. And then, of course, I'll have to finish it off by hand. So now this next section, we once again set up the dial gauge. And now this, let's see, we're going to swing this around this way. This becomes just a little more difficult because we're going to be cutting quite a steep taper here. And when you do that, it means that the barrel is set at more of an angle so that the dog is kind of walking back and forth on the driver, and it's squirming up at the muzzle end as well. And that can set up a little chatter for you. So, but anyway, so what we want to do now is we'll want to end up with this barrel set so that I have the same reading here where I've already turned and here at the front of the rear sight. And so that it reads 0 both places. And then when I turn it, it should come out right here, and we should be okay. So let's see what we can do for that. We're going to set this to 0 here. And then I note my the number on my dial here, which is 11, and I can back up. And you can see if I go to 11 again, I'm at about plus 60. So I've got to, and here I've shown before how you can calculate this, going from the center to the fraction of the overall length. But today I'm not going to do that. Today I'm just going to wing it and see if I can come anywhere close just by guessing, just from the setup. And so we'll see what happens here. And the first thing I'll do is just go up here and touch. And 53 is as far as I can go. So down here, there, it's turning not too badly, but there's quite a bit of flex in the barrel. Like I say, when you're turning a long, flexible piece like this, there's going to be some deflection from the pressure of the tool. And frankly, there's not a heck of a lot you can do about it. That's just something that happens. At some point, when you're doing this, when you're trying to match up, sometimes it does become necessary to put the steady rest on here just to hold the barrel from deflecting away from the tool. And now we're going through the factory stamping. Yeah, and this part I can't take as heavy a cut because there again I think it would maybe tend to induce a chatter. Now, I had commented on the fragility of the tip on the carbide tool, and right here, from cutting the factory stamping, it broke off the tip of that tool. And I don't know if you can actually see that because it's a little hard to spot. But, so maybe if I got the light on it just right, you might be able to see that that top edge is just dubbed off a little bit. It just lost, well, gosh, a few thousandths of an inch. And for the time being, well, actually, no, I'm gonna have to touch that up. But so for subsequent cuts, I'm going to actually stop there, and then I'll probably switch tools to do that last little bit. We'll see where we end up here. See, the tool's not quite right. When you get a shiny finish like this, then that means that the tool's rubbing, so I didn't quite get that point fixed up. And it's turning fairly well, but there's a hint of chatter. And like I say, the finish is too shiny. So we're going to do this again. Give me a second. No. There. It's much better. Now again, I've got the phonograph record finish there, that I'm looking for. Okay, here I am back again. So I've turned this section here, and I actually had 3 different tapers here, and now I'll just file it a little bit to kind of smooth out the transitions, and then that part of it will be done. And generally speaking, when you're doing this, you just have to kind of spread your filing out so that you are blending that transition. If you've got a mark in one place, you don't want to concentrate on that place. You have to continue to file the whole barrel. And Likewise, when I go to polish it at the on the belt sander, it's the same thing. You blend it in. So that's really not too bad, and I'm going to leave that there. So the next step is going to be to set this up and then contour this forward portion on the milling machine, and we'll kind of radius up to where the sight sits, and hopefully end up with a fairly attractive transition there. And I'll be able to have both of the sights sitting at the same level that they're sitting at now. And so all I will have done is just lightened. Now, this transition right here is just a little clumsy, because of course it would have been better to be able to take one taper all the way up to the shoulder, but I couldn't do that and leave the sight sitting the way I wanted to. So here it is, and we'll see how that looks when it's done. I think it'll be all right. So that's that part done. The next video, I'll set the thing up, and we'll figure out how to do that front sight portion, and then after that, it's another Kimber contour, and then that Anschutz 22. And then that should be it for contouring for the time being, I hope. So there we go. Anyway, until then, this is Will Henry, and I'm out.